Tamrin, pick 1, 2, or 3. Level 1 is perception. Level 2 is connection. Level 3 is reflection.
Number 2.
So number 2, you're going to pick one card from the middle bunch
Any?
here. Any. Read it out loud.
Okay. Ooh. Do you think the image you have of yourself matches the image people see you as?
Yeah. Let me think about that a bit more before I answer it so brashly.
Yeah.
Do I think the image that I have of myself is the image that the rest of the world sees?
Matches, yeah. The
Yeah.
image people see you as.
Yeah.
Nice.
I would genuinely say with confidence that the person that I see every day is the person the rest of the world sees. If you'd have asked me that question 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to confidently say yes.
Right.
You look like you're still trying to figure out what the question's asking.
No, well, I think you went into more how you act as a person and how you present yourself, living authentically.
Yeah.
I think I read it slightly
How
differently.
do you read it?
Where the image of myself, not necessarily the way I perceive myself and how I act, but how I look versus the way
physical image.
Yeah, I went physical. So I would say opposite answer to yours.
Yeah.
For myself, I feel like people would think I am different based on the way that I look.
Oh, so hang on. So you've taken this from the world perceiving you physically in terms of aesthetically what you look like.
Yeah.
But and you're talking about matching that up with who you are as a personality.
Yes.
Holy shit, there's 3 dimensions to this. Okay,
Yes.
so I took it as the person that I see in the mirror, like internally, like the personality of Ed.
Yes.
Is that the same personality the world sees?
Yeah.
I said yes.
Okay.
What I thought you were saying was physically, what you see yourself physically as is that what the world sees. So you might see like a skinny,
like body dysmorphia.
body just like underweight individual. The rest of the world might see this like insanely jacked athletic person.
Yeah.
But you're actually seeing a blend of the two. You're saying the world what they see physically, but then what you see from a personality and internal standpoint.
Yeah. So I was saying
Shit,
like just from an
interesting.
outsider looking in, what someone would think of me and who I am and what my personality would be, not based on the way that I put myself out there, but the way that I look.
Okay, so let's break that down. What do you think the world sees physically when they look at Tamrin? And I will let you know my thoughts.
I think that people would see someone who could be potentially quite intimidating. I think that they would think that I'm cool, but I'm not. They would think that I have maybe some form of style or that I really cared about that. Whereas it's not.
So what traits are associated with someone who cares about like style?
I think people would see like the tattoos and like being physically fit as like I'm really into myself, that's why I do that. But
yeah, I think insecurity.
Yeah.
What I typically associate with that.
I think I don't know. That's what I think, but obviously that could be entirely different. How do you feel about my answer about myself?
I'd agree.
Yeah.
I would say that when having gotten to know you, even very quickly after getting to know you, I was quite surprised at how different you were relative to my perceptions of you.
So I was right.
Yeah, you were right. So yeah, you're my. But okay. So can I ask you my take? How I interpret the question back to you, which was, in terms of the person that you look at in the mirror.
Yeah.
From a personality, from a traits, from a beliefs, from a values, from a feelings perspective.
Yeah.
Relative to the person that you put out to the world. Is that the same person? Or is there stuff that you hide and keep to yourself or you're not ready to share with the world?
Yeah, no, I think I'm a pretty open book
Yeah.
when it comes to everything. I think that's what helps me to connect with others is sharing my humanness. I don't feel like I have much to hide. I think that I understand we all are going through our own things. And although they might have a different storyline attached to them, I think the principles are quite similar. And I love that about us. And I love that connects us. So yeah, I feel like what people see online or as a person just like off as a one-off is very much aligned with how I am on a day-to-day.
What they see is what they get.
Yeah, what they see is what they get.
Okay, so then the last layer to the question is the what people see of you from a physical standpoint. Does that match how you see yourself from a physical standpoint?
Yeah, I definitely think it would. Like maybe the only times it wouldn't is if I'm like not feeling great about myself in a moment, which is normally when maybe my mental health isn't good, or if I've overtrained, or if I have gut health stuff, like I naturally start to feel not as positive. But that's actually one of the signs that I look for, is like if I'm starting to like body check or feel a certain way, I'm like, you don't normally do that, so why is it happening?
Yeah. I would say that one for me, I would say there's a mismatch.
Oh,
like the way that I look at myself physically.
Yeah.
And I think straight away like about my body, I would say doesn't match how the rest of the world looks at me. I still see like a small.
Right, you have the insecurities within that you
I've
look
got
for.
I've got like there's body dysmorphia things that I still carry with me from little young Ed.
Yeah.
But it's definitely getting like those feelings are evolving all the time, and I would say that that's becoming less and less important. Those are thoughts that are less and less at the forefront of my mind. But I would say it's definitely one.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's really interesting.
So I'd be interested. I would also say that. Actually, I don't know. I've never thought about what people think of me when they see me.
Yeah.
Relative to what people think of me when they meet me, or when they get to know me.
Yeah. So
basically, it's like what we're really saying is like, how do people judge you based on how you look? What are the assumptions that people draw?
So something that I would say if I spoke about you, maybe with your like older style of like looking a little bit more preppy.
Before I shaved my head.
Before
basically.
You went hardcore, man.
Yeah.
And grew your Three Musketeers mustache. Now I just think you're a joke, and it's true.
Yeah.
No. I don't know. Like sometimes people have this perception. I'm not saying that was necessarily just you, but it could be you, where, you're not an ugly person. Like you're quite attractive. And I think sometimes where someone's like, their body looks pretty good and they're quite good looking, people would think either they're arrogant and up themselves, or that they're not a nice person. And maybe that was the old Ed that you've spoken about before, but I think that would be the misalignment for me. Is meeting you and learning how nice you are, how caring you are, how much time you have to give to others, and the way that you operate, and the depth that you have in terms of the thought that you have going into self-development and the people around you as well. Like that is not what you would see as a snapshot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm going to add one piece to that, and what people, I think, with my old look used to think, which was that I'm gay.
Aren't you?
I would get that a lot. It would be like Metro, but then I would just hear every now and then they'd be like, "Oh, I thought Ed was gay." I'm just like, yeah, I find it quite funny. I think Skulk might have thought I was gay when he first joined.
Really?
Yeah, when he first joined the team.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I never thought that.
I can understand why people might think that. Like, you see someone with like pretty sweeped hair and
you're like put together,
looks
very
after
put
himself.
Together.
Yeah, that's just a stereotype for sure. But I can definitely see why people might think that.
Yeah.
There was probably a time when I was younger where I'd actually get a bit offended by that, and now I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
I kind of just laugh it off, and it's like, yeah, I can totally understand why someone would think that.
Yeah, guys, I could go both ways. Anyway.
Okay, my turn to pick a card.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so 1, 2, or 3. You went with 2. I'm going to go with 2 as well. That was fun.
I love a connection.
Okay, 2, connection. Oh, no, wild cards. They're not good.
Oh, okay.
Okay, redraw. Oh, what's your mother's name and the most beautiful thing about her? My mum listens to this podcast, so I'm going to think about this one.
Oh, okay. I thought you had one.
No, you're going to go first.
Is the most beautiful thing about the name or about them?
What's your mother's name and the most beautiful thing about her?
Oh, that's awesome. My mum's name is Penelope, Penny for short. there are so many incredible things about her, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. She is an incredible role model, supporter, all the things that I could ask for. But the most beautiful thing about her is her openness. Like she is someone who's religious but has never been someone to judge anyone for not being. She accepts, and she embodies just really good traits of being a good person. And I think that's what's allowed me to explore life in the way that I have, is because it was like I grew up in that household, but it was never super strict rules about it. It was, at the end of the day, you are your own human and you have to experience life and you have to figure things out. But we're going to love you and give you grace no matter what that is. So
nice.
That's
I know I've met Penny. She's a lovely human.
Yeah.
Well, my mother's name is Lillian.
Yeah.
Lillian Haynes. The most beautiful thing about my mum is she's the first word that pops to mind is she's very, very, very sweet. And I know that's a word that can be interpreted many different ways, but she is extremely loving in her own way.
Absolutely.
And she will always be there for you.
Yeah.
She's also, my biggest fan and my biggest supporter. She listens to every podcast episode. She likes every single Instagram story, not even just post.
That's my mum, unless it's a tattoo, and I notice she doesn't like it.
That's what you know.
Yeah, I knew.
And I'm also just in awe of my mum's like dedication to bettering herself. Like in the last 5-10 years, I've seen incredible growth and change from my mum, which is really inspiring to know that someone of older age can still change and can still evolve. And that's been really like inspiring for me. And like her commitment to her health and fitness is just,
it's so cool.
So good.
Well, she's like your like A+ student.
She is. She really is. And it's like, it's just very, I always tell her like how amazing it is what she does.
Yeah.
And that I'm actually very inspired by her. And I want to like show my mum to the world with what she does, to show people that like you can do it. Like anyone can do this. And just to see how dedicated and committed she is and how open-minded she is when it comes to health and fitness and challenging previous beliefs. That's what's very beautiful about my mum.
Love it.
Tammi, today's podcast episode.
Oh, we're not playing this game the whole time?
Yes, with a change of subject. Today, well, we're kind of on the same lines. What I love about, by the way, we're not
really strangers.
Is just the openness and the vulnerability that these cards always kind of like dig into. And that's kind of what I wanted to speak to you today about, which was dealing with like hard times. And how do you deal with hard times, and maybe a little insight into like whatever tools you have in your locker that you go to, but also like the real feelings, thoughts and emotions that go through your mind. Because I certainly know that in the same way that what we're just talking about, we have perceptions of one another.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people look at us as coaches who are, doing really cool physical things with our physical bodies, but we seem to be hardworking, these kind of like warriors, these machines that can do everything. And I think a lot of people forget that we go through an experience and feel the same things that the rest of the world does. In fact, the whole world does. And so I wanted to ask you, because I know we've been having some conversations lately, and you've had a unique set of challenges that have come your way in the last month or so, and then just to talk about that and what you do to get you over the hump.
Sure.
So my first question
is,
has there been something that has challenged you recently? And if you're open to sharing, what was that thing?
I think the real question is, has there been something that hasn't challenged you? Yeah, I mean, it's been a bit of a whirlwind, to be honest. There are so many things that I can list right now in terms of challenges. I think, heading into the new year, a bit of a structure change at work with, one of my closest work friends leaving and my training buddy leaving, and someone I probably confided in a lot and spent a lot of time with was now being removed from the picture. There were changes in terms of my roles and responsibilities and what I was taking on. There were changes in the structure of the schedule. I had an injured foot, which meant that I wasn't able to walk for a bit and do the things that normally I utilize as a tool to get back to a better place. I had lack of routine with like visitors in town, which meant, it was great to connect with my parents and do the stuff that we did. But I just had a holiday before where I'd made it the priority to connect with others, but lost not track. I would just say I got complacent with my protocols that I'd normally have in place with my mental health. So then my bipolar, I had my first low in a really long time, at least a low like that. As bad as it got, I hadn't experienced that in a really long time. So being back in that place, being injured, not being able to deal with it in the way that I wanted to, was really difficult. And then as a byproduct of my mental health being poor, my gut health was poor. And because of that, then I had a compromised immune system. And then because I had a compromised immune system, since January, I've been sick 4 times already. I got knocked down with a flu. I had a really bad stomach bug once. Then I got another stomach bug recently, just last week. I've not been able to do a full week of training. I've had to adjust everything. I have niggles. So it's a lot. Wow. Saying that all, I was like, wow, that is a lot. So yeah, that has been my most recent struggles, and that's only in the last 8 weeks. So
how much of that is linked? What is there like a lowest hanging fruit? Is there like one big thing there that started the cascade that led to everything else?
Yeah. For me, a lack of routine. That was the first thing. As soon as that goes, then I can deal with it for a while, but not getting back to the swing of the routine and having the self-awareness to be able to pull things back at the right time, then the rest cascades with it.
Why did your routine go out?
So the routine went out initially with the travel. I made this really big goal of 2023 being the year of connection, and I did a really good job. I was really proud of the friendships that I forged and the friendships that I rekindled. And it was about showing people more than just telling people what they meant to me. And that meant flying overseas to visit people and see people I hadn't seen in like 5-6 years. So incredible moments of connection and just such a great time. And I relinquished the normal things that I would have in place to be able to connect with those people. That meant staying up later or eating foods maybe that I didn't always agree with, or not eating as regularly or eating enough because of those moments, like not really having much structure with that, training just being whatever it was. And just coming back to a place of, it was the Christmas holidays. Everyone else was away and I was just doing more work at the time, and I wasn't sleeping in my house. And then as soon as that finished, my parents were here. So it was just a whole bunch of time not being in routine.
And what does lack of routine do to you? Like, why is that a bad thing?
Yeah. So I think, something that's maybe made me the coach that I am with nutrition and lifestyle and having more of a holistic approach is from my experience of suffering with my mental health and having to put in place these protocols, which initially I was like, this is, I used to play the victim card with it and being like, I've been dealt the shittest card right now and I have to deal with life with this. But I learned about how important lifestyle factors are. And by dialing it in, okay, I'm never going to be able to fully control it, but I'm doing my due diligence to set myself up for success. And not having those things in place looks like sleep being disrupted, food patterns being disrupted. And it doesn't mean I'm like on this super tight schedule all the time. That's not it. There just needs to be something and some sort of consistency. The biggest thing for me, for sure, I can think of is sleep and stress management, because my stress management becomes poor when I don't have good quality sleep.
When you talk about stress management, what do you mean?
So when I'm saying stress management, I find it very hard and I become very overwhelmed by life. And I mean, like things that normally I would just look at and be like, cool, well, I'll just think this. My ability to change my perception and to actually manage the stress that I'm experiencing is very poor in those moments. I'm less able, it's kind of like coming into the gym after a night out or something and like trying to peak your performance. It doesn't really happen. That's kind of the way that I can think about it.
Yeah. When I would say sleep is like, people would say sleep is king, but genuinely
it is.
When that is not right for me, it's just a slippery slope for everything else. Like I've never been someone whose appetite and cravings really get like thrown off by lack of sleep, but I know that affects a lot of people. But for sure, just the lens that I look at life through when I have a bad sleep, it's like something that wouldn't normally rub me the wrong way. It rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
My ability to see the positive in things, like I just lose that ability, and I get hyper focused on the negative.
Yeah.
Like my temper gets short. I just have a tendency just to look at, I go searching for the bad things.
Yeah.
And I think, and a part of it, the funny thing for me is that when I started learning about sleep and just how important it was, I created another layer of stress when I wouldn't have a good night's sleep, because I would know about the physiological things that were happening in my body and my brain when I wouldn't have a good sleep. And then I would just be looking for confirmation, right? I'm looking for the universe to confirm that having a bad night's sleep is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Right. So I would just look for any reason to be like, yep, knew it was going to be a shit day. Yeah, knew this is what a bad night's sleep does. And my own neurotic way of looking at it made a bad night's sleep, which isn't the worst thing in the world, even worse.
Yeah.
So now I feel like I've parted ways with that in many ways. Like it's a part of life. Sometimes you have bad night's sleeps. The more important thing to do is to connect the dots on why you're having it, so then you can actually have a solution to try and get back on track. But yeah, I can resonate. I just feel, and as much as you can have protocol sometimes, to try and offset the fact that you might be looking at life through a slightly different lens with bad sleep, it's also just the way that your brain functions when it's a little bit under recovered.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can resonate with that. So you have a lot of things happening. It all starts with lack of sleep and a lack of routine.
Yeah.
What's the next thing? Like, what's the next dot that you can now connect that happens because of all that? Because, you rattled off a huge list of things that's all happening.
Yeah, for sure. So I could, we spoke about it actually with the cards, is like, I noticed myself not being as positive about my body, and I don't think that way often. So when it happens, I'm like, okay, that's a red flag. I found myself, struggling. It was an effort to do my job, and normally it's not. Like, yeah, okay, it's work, and I like have to, show up and do a good job, and I normally do, and I still do in those moments, but I'm like, it's hard.
It's harder.
Like I'm really having to think about conversation as well. Like things will happen that frustrate me, and it's like, you don't need to be frustrated by any of the things happening right now. I feel probably, and this is because it was sliding into like my poor mental health, like the mental health decline is where this was going. And essentially, if you don't know much about bipolar, it's like we have highs and lows, and essentially the low is depression. So I was depressed. And like you said, the lens that you have is just everything was negative. And every time that I did anything outside of being by myself, like the amount of energy that requires for me to show up as just a normal person is really difficult, because I can't bring that to every situation. I can be honest with people and communicate where I'm at and what's going on, but sometimes I don't want to let them in on how bad it is, because it's not the right place. It's not the right time. I can't walk into a class and be like, hey guys, I'm depressed, so you're just going to have to all suffer with me, like, so yeah, then the next thing was definitely just the way that I was thinking. I was starting to feel extremely stressed. When I say stressed, like I just have this constant, my brain won't switch off the fact, like I have all these things to do. I feel really overwhelmed. I have to go to work. I have to, remove myself from my house. I want to be alone. All I want to do is withdraw. I feel negative about myself. Like, what's wrong with you? Why are you thinking this way? Why do you feel this way? You're worthless. No one's going to care. Like, there's just this negative cycle that just goes and goes and goes.
When you are going through that,
yes,
how long? Because you're talking about all this stuff, like you've got this great awareness now, like, oh yeah, all this has happened. But like, give us some timelines here. How long is it taking for you to catch yourself going through this, and how do you catch yourself?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think you recognize it, and the thing that's hard sometimes is like there is no control over the duration of which it lasts. I can start to implement things that I know are helpful, and like tools and strategies that I've used before to help cope or deal with things as best I can in those moments. But it's not really until I start to feel a little bit better that it's easier to have the hindsight to be like, wow, that's interesting. That's the way that I was feeling. But processing is what I would say is the most helpful thing for me.
Yeah.
Whether that is speaking to one of my closest friends or even my parents. If it's writing, I express myself through writing. So I'm very honest on my Instagram. Like, I'll tell people when I'm having a moment that feels terrible. And I remember describing it to people saying, like, it just feels like I'm learning to surf a wave that I've never surfed before, and I'm getting pulled under. And no matter how hard I'm trying, I can't find like the light. I can't find the, the top or the surface of the water. Or if I'm about to reach the surface, it feels like life's pulling me back down again and I can't get out of it. So yeah, I don't know if that described anything that you asked.
Yeah, I think for me, I need to have an outlet.
Yeah.
Which is I need to get my thoughts out of my head.
Yeah.
And I think the more I keep my thoughts in my head and I don't share them, which is quite rare for me because I think I'm quite an expressive person. I actually struggle keeping thoughts myself. I'll often feel like I have to get them out of my head. Certainly wasn't the way I used to be. I had like a million volts in my head and would just have a million things locked away until they would come spilling out in a horrible way. But now, so the outlet is like I really have created a really great relationship and a habit with journaling, and that is just something that I've just done now so consistently for a really long time. That's one outlet. But the interesting thing was my journal is because I started journaling in French now. So I've been learning French about a year and a half, and it's like part of like practicing my French as I write in French. And because my vocabulary in French is a little bit limited, it means I'm just basically
sad.
Today I woke up and finished my work. Then I went to the gym. I had a great session with my team. The sun was shining. Team meeting was awesome. Oh, hang on. I feel like I've written this every single day. Oh, I have. But what that means is that I've become a lot less expressive from an emotional standpoint in my journal. I just realized that the other week. I was like, I'm just now practicing French and
I'm just writing about my day.
I'm basically just listing my day from start to finish. I'm not really.
And then I did this.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not really digging into my emotions like I normally would when I write in English. So then I'm very grateful to have like a partner at home who I can speak to every night about, and we basically, we'll always do that. How was your day? Tell us about it, and we'll always just share and any feelings and emotions, and that's a very beneficial thing for me that I love having. And I know when I didn't have that, those thoughts would just ruminate in my head, and the longer they ruminate, the more they just build up to be something that is just so much worse than real life.
Oh, absolutely. I think something that makes it hard though with mental health stuff specifically, or at least with my depressive lows, is there's no explanation. I think that's something that can be quite frustrating and tiring, is like there is no answer that you can search for that's going to define the thoughts and the feelings that you're having. It can't be like someone did something or I did this and this is what caused me to feel this way. It's just an overall shitty feeling.
But there's something, it sounds like there's something that still triggers it, right? So in this case it was like the lack of routine was the thing that started spiraling it.
No, you're right. I mean, like there were actions that came into play probably before that, but also with the nature of bipolar, it's just a chemical imbalance. I have a reason this time, but there's not always a reason, I guess.
Can I ask you a question? So I had this question on Chris Williamson. I don't know if you know Chris Williamson.
I don't.
He's got a great podcast that I like to listen to. And he was on Piers Morgan's show. And Piers Morgan asked him the question and said, should as a nation, as a planet, should we be focusing more on mental health or physical health? What would you answer?
I think that your mental health plays such a So the thing is, it would go both ways. It's so hard to answer because working on your physical health can help your mental health, but working on your mental health will also help you with doing the physical stuff as well. So it depends where you're at in your journey and who you are. I don't think there is a right or wrong. I think there's still just having the focus on both. as they're going to like help each other.
Yeah.
What would you think?
I would think exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's like those who struggle with physical health need mental health to get them started with physical, and those who struggle with mental health almost need physical health to get them started with their mental. Like they're so intertwined. And speaking from personal experience, so much of my mental health comes from movement. And if I'm having a shitty day, if I just move, the difference it makes and how I feel, my outlook on life is just entirely different. And I remember, have you watched Stutz, the documentary with Jonah Hill? And he sits with his and he talks about at the base of all mental health is movement. And without movement and some form of physical practice in your life, you will never achieve higher levels of mental health. It is the pillars, it's the fundamentals. And I certainly believe that, but it's hard for me to say it because physical health and movement has been a part of my life from the day I can remember. So I've never experienced life without it.
I just think there are so many more layers to it. Like, I think precision nutrition definitely talks about like deep health. And I know like people who are more holistic within their approach have the whole idea of like, I mean, spirituality for some people can be a part of that, but it's beyond just mental and physical. It talks about your relational health, your social health, your financial health, like for people who that's important to. I think just having full batteries for all of those things is so pivotal for overall health. Yeah,
it's hard to know which one's the chicken and which one's the egg.
I think it's just there isn't
it's also intertwined.
It's everything. Yeah.
I certainly think that physical health is a lot less of a complex beast to understand. In many ways it can be. I feel it's a lot more simplistic to start making progress on. And mental health can be just such an overwhelm. I mean, the word mental health, I didn't understand it for the first 5 years of hearing it. I just associated mental health with mental disorders. I didn't even think the brain was like something we should be thinking about. I thought that was something for psychologists and psychiatrists who were trained to be able to deal with that, and the rest of us just existed.
Yeah, but you can always say like you can go so many ways. Like you're saying, the physical health is so much easier to get started on, but if the stress of someone is holding them back from being able to do stuff, and that's
I don't think physical stress is easy to get started on. Physical activity, I think it's easier to understand. Right. It's much more simple in that sense. It's like move your body, and you're looking after your physical. You're doing something for your physical health. Doing something for your mental health is.
I love what you said just then. I think that the physical aspect is that it is physical and it's visible. Like you can see tangible results, and measurable. I think it's measurable. Exactly. It's really hard with mental health because you just don't see what's going on behind the closed doors, like.
Do you remember Dr. Kylie Chen's statistic on the brain and how many thoughts you have a day?
No, I wasn't there.
Oh, you weren't there. Okay, so we had Dr. Kylie Chen join us at the Athlete Camp.
Yeah.
So how many thoughts do you think we have every single day?
Like millions.
Well, you just made my answer rubbish now.
Oh.
60,000.
60,000?
60,000 thoughts a day.
Yeah.
Okay. Of those 60,000 thoughts, how many of those thoughts do you think are repetitive as a percentage? So the same thoughts over and over again.
A lot.
80% of the 60,000 thoughts that we have every day are repetitive. Of that 80%, how many of those thoughts are negative?
A lot more than positive.
90%.
Far out.
So 80% of our 60,000 thoughts every day are repetitive thoughts.
Yeah.
And 90% of those are negative thoughts.
Isn't that crazy?
Nuts. Which, the way that I look at that is that it kind of allows me to be a bit more forgiving on myself when I am thinking a little more negatively, which I think is, again, very natural. I think as hunter-gatherers, we're more inclined to think about the berry in the wild that's going to kill us versus the one that tastes really nice. We're survival species, and I think our brains are kind of wired to be that way. And trying to be just positive all the time is almost fighting against our DNA in a way. That's like the forgiving part of myself. Because I think I do try to live a very, a positive inflow life, and that's a conscious decision. And sometimes when I catch myself being negative, I'll beat myself up a little bit for it. And it's more about just accepting. When I heard that stat, I was like, whoa, shit, that makes a bit more sense now.
Yeah. What helps you to accept it?
What helps me to accept it? It's just knowing that it's normal, that it's okay, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot more to it. It's not just beating myself up when I have a negative thought. It's probably more over beating up the old self, beating up like Ed of the past and the thoughts he might have had, and the way I behaved and the way that I acted and the values that I had. I sometimes beat myself up over that, but then I'm like, that was just me in a different chapter of life.
Yeah. Instead of celebrating the fact that you are where you are right now,
exactly,
that's the win rather than who you used to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
What are your thoughts?
My thoughts right now about what I just asked you.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I think like acceptance, but having the self-awareness is the biggest thing that I would have said from all of that, is recognizing that you're having those thoughts and being able to look at it from outside looking in, to be like, it's okay to have these thoughts, but maybe there's a reason you're having them.
Where are they coming from?
Where are they coming from? And
what are you going to do about it? Yeah.
It's such a good skill to be able to, name feelings and understand what's going on, so you can start to get to the root cause of all the stuff going on, which is probably something that I wanted to talk about today, because you were asking about like the struggles and what I've gone through and how we deal with struggle. And probably like, if I was to say a tip for anyone, or my biggest piece of advice, and this is for training, it's for mental health, it's for anything in life, is self-awareness, developing self-awareness, because that's what helps you to pull yourself out of holes easier. It's what helps you to recognize that struggle is a normal part of life, but you overcome it faster and you're more resilient because you have the tools in place, because you know yourself well enough to know what tools you need in those moments. So
what stops people from having high levels of self-awareness?
I
can definitely speak on behalf of guys.
Yeah, tell me.
I think for a lot of guys, there is this stigma around being in touch with your feelings.
Yeah.
And talking about your feelings and vulnerability, admitting when things are hard and admitting when you need help.
Yeah.
I think that's something that a very masculine tendency.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, and probably coupled with the era that we grew up in, I think it's a bit different now, seeing younger kids, their teens right now, who are coming into the world with potentially much more like, less stigmas and stereotypes attached to like male and female types. I think just because of where the world is moving, but certainly like my parents, like that's just another level. I think my generation for sure was still there, and I think we're moving into a new generation in that sense. But I think that's one of the biggest contributors to why male suicide is higher than it's ever been before. That we still have this reluctance and this fear of talking about things that are really tough, and it's not just about having an inability to share it with others, but it's an inability to accept it ourselves. That's where it all begins. So we suppress the feelings, we sweep them under the rugs, we pretend they don't exist, we tell ourselves to harden up, we tell ourselves to toughen up, we play to the character that we want to be, and wear the mask of the person we want to be, and then these things just don't ever really get addressed, and therefore the awareness doesn't develop.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that a lot. I think a lot of the times it's putting on a mask because that's the normal thing societally to do. Everyone's asking you how you are on a day-to-day basis. It's, at least in Western culture, it's a very normal thing to be like, how are you? And most people are probably just going to say good, like without even.
Do you do that when people ask you how you're doing?
I've changed my tone of what I would say. I definitely let people in a little who actually it would be anyone. Like, so if someone asks me that walks in the gym, hey, Tammi, how are you? And I'm not in a good place, I'll be like, I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. You know, like to let them know I'm not good, just okay. And I say it that way. I'm like, just okay. And I even give them like an inclination, and then they'll go to be like, what's going on? I'm like, I'd rather not talk about it. If it was at that time not an appropriate place where I felt like I was going to cry at the time or something, you know? If it's a friend that's asking me that, I'll directly tell them like, I'm not in a good place, you know, like just lay it out on them. But again, it's like time appropriate as well. If that friend is someone who's coming to me and they're about to like share what's going on, I'll make it not about me, but I'll still say, I'm not that great, but it's all right. Let's talk about you kind of thing.
Yeah. I think it has to be time and emotion sensitive.
Yeah.
I'm the same. I find it very hard to just give a blank statement. Yeah, I'm good. Like I used to. Now it will be similar to you. If I'm not doing that well, I'll be like, yeah, I'm all right, but I'm okay. Like nothing to worry about. Or like, you don't need to dig type thing, just to kind of put them at ease. I know if someone said that to me, I'd be like, my caring side would be activated straight away and be like, tell me what's happening and what can I do to help. So I kind of just layer it straight away with, but don't worry, like all's okay, working through it, no problem at all.
I also don't think with the self-awareness aspect that people recognize how much of a powerful tool it is. No one, like, people speak about it now for sure, I understand that, but I think that people just don't know that having that self-awareness is the thing that's going to help them to feel better. And you're totally correct in saying that a lot of the time, you know, we'll kind of be like, harden up, just get over it. Like, it's going to be fine, or it's normal to feel this way, and like, just ignore it, you know? So, yeah.
Okay, and we'll talk about injury, because you just dealt with a bit of an injury, as have I. And we kind of, I think we connected over some of the things that we were feeling just recently being down the training floor. What's that been like for you, having this injury? What was your injury? Again, your foot?
I had I think that
from your run with Liam.
Yeah, but it was like, again, lingered. It was like the compounding effect of having the holiday, walking. I mean, I walk a ridiculous amount already, but like walking more than I normally would, running more because I knew that I had the half marathon coming up, wasn't eating and sleeping correctly. So it was like an accident waiting to happen, and it was just the straw that broke the camel's back kind of thing. Like, if it wasn't going to be then, it was going to be at another time. Walk you through how I was feeling. You mean just in general, or like on the floor downstairs?
Well, there's definitely times where like I could see that it was getting you down.
Yeah, I was definitely down about it, but it was mainly because I've spent so many years. The thing is, and this is like ridiculous when I'm saying it, I could nearly do anything inside the gym, but I didn't want to be inside the gym. I wanted to be outside of the gym because that's what my happy place is. And I already wasn't in that great of a negative space, mind space, or head space, should I say. And one of the things that really normally helps me is walking outdoors and being in nature and taking myself on like little adventures to just show me how grand the world is and how awesome it is, and how little can help so much in terms of like the simplicity of life. It's a moment to disconnect and just be extremely present and be grateful for something. And I felt like I was grateful for nothing, and I couldn't do that. And that was really hard for me to deal with. I know it now, like I have so many other tools that I could have utilized, but because I was in a negative space, I focused on the fact that I couldn't use the one that I wanted, and I was stubborn. So I was my own worst enemy in that moment. But yeah, I definitely felt extremely defeated. And no matter how much I told myself to focus on what I did have, I couldn't help but focus on what I didn't have.
Yeah, can resonate. I'm obviously no strangers at injury, so normally they don't really derail with me. But this time, so I basically had this knee injury. This on my good knee, not my stem cell knee, by the way, everyone, because everyone keeps on asking me, oh my god, I thought stem cells were really good. My stem cells are great. It's the other knee that actually has never bothered me at all. That's the one.
The glass is going down again.
Giving up on me right now. But so basically, we finished a lot of traveling at the end of last year. Again, routine, same thing as you, was just out. I knew that sleep wasn't great. Nutrition was not great. You know, like working long days, traveling, planes, lots of really exciting stuff, like all good shit, you know, so grateful for what I'm doing, loving every minute of it. But in the back of my mind, knowing from a health perspective, like this is starting to take its toll a little bit. Came back to Hong Kong after going to Cebu and, you know, helping out the Cebu Throwdown, coming straight back, running the athlete camp. And then basically came in on the Monday and was like, oh God, I can't, what is going on with my knee? And then, you know, it was just like, okay, just deload for a week, work around it. Came the next week, still there. Next week, still there. And it's like, this is not getting better. And normally I'm pretty good at diagnosing what's happening, you know, playing around, you know, you experiment, right? Okay, is it a soft tissue thing? Do I need release work? Try that. That's not working. Is it like a deloading thing? Do I just need to like lay off it for a little bit, stop triggering pain? That's not really working. Is it like a mechanical thing? Am I moving incorrectly? No, it's not that. And it's like, what is it?
What's going on?
Yeah, like, is it because I'm stressed? Okay, then I really focus on trying to get my sleep back, getting healthy again. That took a while. That took like 3-4 weeks before I felt like I was healthy again. Then I was healthy and it was like still there. And so I just got really, and I think something that's adding to all of this was the fact that CrossFit Open was coming up.
Yeah, like you were like, I have something I need
Even
to be ready
though
for.
I was like, all good, you know, if I'm injured, I'm not going to put myself at risk and make it worse. But deep down, like I really want to do the CrossFit Open. It's like the thing I love doing the most. I just don't want to not be a part of it. And I've been very lucky to be able to do 10 of them up until this point. I just want to keep that momentum going. So that was definitely probably making me be a little bit less patient. When, you know, had this happened 6 months ago, I would have probably just taken the much more conservative route, just really taking it easy and got everything in check. So I was just getting really frustrated and was kind of laughing to myself, being like, I am behaving like it's my first injury. Like I'm getting frustrated, like going home to Cami, being like, it's just not getting better. And she's like, you gave it a day. I'm like, yeah, but it should be better by now. And I'm like, oh my God,
slept
listen.
8 hours last night.
Yeah, I'm like, listen to yourself. Like, it's ridiculous. But it's so funny how we justify to ourselves the things that we do. Because in hindsight, this knee has been not good for probably like 9 months.
Yeah.
And there's been signs for 9 months. And I have just ignored them and just told myself, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
And then it gets a bit worse. Like, it's still not that bad. Oh, you know, actually, no, I'll just skip out that exercise, but it's not that bad. It'll get better. And when it's not getting better and it's just getting worse and worse, you just find a new excuse to justify it to yourself that it's totally fine.
It's totally true.
And then it happens and you're like pissed off, and then, you know, you're not, it's the whole like stages of acceptance, right? You're angry, then you refuse to admit that it's actually happened. And then you kind of come round to being like, okay, maybe it has happened. And then it's like full acceptance. Then it's like piecing it all together. Oh shit. Yeah. I know why I know why it's happened now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can relate a lot to what you were just saying. And I think that like an analogy that comes to mind is kind of like you're driving in a car and you're trying to get to this destination. And you have your dashboard, and we know that there's like those lights that kind of pop up every now and then. I remember I ignored it as a P plater for sure. But, you know, it might be like the oil needs changing, or something with the motor, or there's water that's run out somewhere, or the petrol thing's gone on as well. And it's like, I can make it.
I got it. Yeah.
I got this. Or it's like you actually just are like, I'm not even going to look at it. I'm just going to keep going and just kind of hope for the best. And I feel like that has been me. And like you're saying, like the thing is, I totally fucking knew.
Yeah.
Like, and it was a decision. And that's what frustrates me now is like, had you have just made a different decision at that moment, you would be in a completely different space. But sometimes, no matter how many times you learn the lesson, you're going to learn it again. And unfortunately, at least for me, I don't know for you, right now, I am like really learning that lesson hard, where it's at the point now where I'm like, if I just like move for 60 minutes today,
happy days.
I'm pretty fucking stoked.
So let me ask you, when you were amidst the injury and you knew deep down that you should probably do something different or less or whatever, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
What was the story that you were telling yourself in your head that kept you going?
it's not that bad. Like, you'll be okay. Like,
It's gonna heal.
yeah. Well, it was also like, it wasn't the foot coming back. Like, I was really smart about that. I never really pushed that, because as soon as I felt the foot thing, I made sure that okay, no, that's a lie. I was like, wait a second. It had happened the day before my parents arrived. And this is like an injury that I should not be walking on. My parents and I did 30,000 steps the next day, which probably made it even worse and made the recovery even longer. Anyway, but once I knew that sort of stuff, it was almost like, it was hard because a lot of the stuff was unavoidable. Like, I live on an island and I have to walk to my house.
Yeah.
Like, there was all those things. So then when I made the adjustments to like stay at someone else's house and be in a different position, that was easier. But the dashboard lights that I was talking about weren't necessarily, the injury happened because I ignored the dashes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it was like, what did I think in those moments was, oh, it's going to be fine. Like, you'll get back to your routine. Like, you're allowed to live your life like this every now and again. But I learned that I can't. And I learned that when those signs come up of feeling tired or feeling like not well rested, or my recovery was low, or that I shouldn't be doing a specific workout even, or I should be taking a rest day, or I should just prioritize my sleep and say no to a social commitment, or whatever it is, I chose not to all the time. So yeah.
And sometimes you get away with it.
That's the thing.
And
I thought I would get away.
And sometimes you don't.
I really haven't, and it's been a little longer than I'd like it to be.
Yeah. I mean, I think the approach that I always take is that when I know I need to do something different, I'll try and do the smallest amount of change and see if it's effective. And then that doesn't work. So you try a little bit more. That's not effective. And you try a little bit more. And obviously, one thing you could just do is just play it 100% on the safe side and just, take the more drastic approach that I feel extremely reluctant to do. So I know what I probably need to do, but I'm not ready to go all the way there. And I think, what's governing that? What's making that decision? Maybe there's still some body insecurity things that come with me not wanting to not train, another thing is probably like being a part of my team and like feeling like I'm missing out if I don't do that. Another thing is I just love training and how good that makes me feel.
Yeah.
Another bit is like, linked to body insecurity thing. It's not really about not being fat, but it's like not building muscle. And then it's like, I got weak legs and I want to get strong legs. So I can't afford to skip a leg day.
Yeah.
Even though I know that's hurt my knee. There's all these past experiences and traumas that have are still existing in my brain somewhere that are making me more reluctant to just take the break that I probably know I need to do.
Yeah.
So that's my thing that I'm wrestling now. It's like, what were those voices really? What were those voices that were actually stopping me from giving myself the rest I needed?
Yeah.
And I need to dig into those a bit more.
I love that you said that. That's actually the self-exploration that I'm going through right now as well, is a lot of what I've put down to the accumulation of all the things that I'm experiencing is I'm really bad at like pausing in life. I'm really bad at sitting still. Like, I'll say it. I'm constantly moving, always. Like, get up to going to bed. There is maybe a pocket of time where I'm sitting and it's because I'm eating. Like, that's literally probably it. So I've been trying to explore why I do that. And I've been trying to like teach myself exactly the way that I would teach my clients, where like less is more. And unfortunately, like I have not been listening to all the whispers that my body was giving, and it's given me some pretty severe screams right now. And you don't know what you have until it's gone, right? Like, you're so grateful for health when you don't have health. And I think right now, if I could say my biggest goal is to feel healthy and to feel good mentally, physically, all of it. Like, I am so disconnected from the person that I normally am, and I want that back, and I'll do anything to get that back right now, and I wish that I always had that mindset of like, remember what it feels like to feel good. I even remember going through my camera roll, and I told you this, I was like, I'm actually going to go back through my camera roll and find a moment where I know actually I was healthy. Like, when did the whispers actually start? What started this all? And I was going back and I was like, cool, nothing in February, nothing. Nope, still unhealthy. Oh, December, nope. November, nope. Oh, beginning of October was the last time that I could tell you that I felt healthy and good. So in that whole moment, I had all of that time to like make changes and reflect on like what I could do to make that happen again. And yeah, right now it's a really interesting, like, even like I said, just moving for 60 minutes with light bodybuilding where it's not making any adaptation. The fact that in the last 2 weeks I've trained 2 days, like, like, it's just super interesting because, like you said, body composition, if that was a thing, like, my body hasn't changed that much. I mean, I lost a bit of weight because I was shitting my pants, but apart from that, like, things are really changed, and like, I feel better and more rested, and my sleep is better because I'm slowing down, but it's because I've been forced to. So I'm trying to take from this lesson right now of, look what happens when you pause a little. Like, yes, you're still like a little overwhelmed and you still got some mental stuff going on that you're having to deal with, but it's much more manageable because you're giving those moments of time to just chill.
Yeah. I wrote, so I do this thing where I put a post-it note in a jar every single week with like a thought, feeling, or emotion. And I broke the rules a bit this week because I wrote something in there on a Wednesday and it's normally a Sunday. But the note that I wrote was, I just had 4 amazing nights of sleep, and I only had 4 amazing nights of sleep because I've deloaded hard for the last 4 weeks.
Yeah.
It took me 4 weeks of meditating everything. I stepped up meditation, nutrition, like no slip, like, on point to the way that I want it, in bed for 9 hours every single night. And it took 4 weeks to get from having really broken, crappy sleeps to actually having a full night of rest. Yep. And I was like, I have to write this down. So when I open this post-it note next year, I'm reminded that, Ed, you can have good sleep. Yeah. You just need to slow down enough to get there. Because the story I tell myself is, when I'm not having good sleep, which is a lot of the time, I'm just not a good sleeper. But I can function. I can function really well with bad sleep.
Yeah.
So, you can sleep the whole night without waking. Oh, that's awesome. Like, I haven't had that since I was a teenager. Yeah. And I just put this label on myself, which confirms that it's okay to not have a good night's sleep. But actually, it's not okay. And now I'm experiencing it. I'm like, you can have it. You just don't slow down enough in your life to allow yourself to have it. So I felt like I had to write that down and stick it in a jar. So I'm like, I need to not forget this time, because I guarantee if I don't write that down and be conscious of this moment right now, 2 months is going to go down. 2 months is going to pass. I'm going to have crappy sleep again. I'm going to tell myself it's totally okay.
Absolutely. I love what you said just then. It's like the story we tell ourselves. This is the person that I am. This is the kind of things that happen. And I truly believe that everything is changeable, but we don't have enough patience or consistency to allow that change to happen.
Yeah.
And, that actually is just, I love what you just said about, it took 4 weeks, where in reality, 4 weeks compared to the neglect you've given yourself over the last year is nothing. But it feels like a lifetime. Yeah. And creating that change and being consistent with it is so hard when you don't see immediate results.
And also the biggest amount of fear that probably stops me from taking it easier more often is my body. And like my body, like you said, my body's hardly changed. Yeah. In actual fact, every time I like go through a deload, and I'll normally move from, I've trained 5 days a week, 5 sessions in the week in the gym, probably for the last 15 years. Every time I train 4 times a week, I feel so much better.
Yeah.
Like I'm actually like, I think I should be training 4 times a week. I literally say it to myself all the time. And I'm like, nah, everyone else is doing 5. Like, I'll be fine. And I'll do 5 of like, and I just feel shit. And I'll just do it. But like, even this little period, like training 4 times a week and upper lower splits have been great for me and my knee as I've been rehabbing. I'm like, I should just keep on doing this a little bit more. It just feels right for me. And I'm not saying this to anyone else listening to this. That's what you should do. But I know that that's me, but I'm being affected by
what's going on,
what everyone else
you.
is doing.
Well, I think, this is something else that I'd written, like you said, about processing and journaling. I definitely journal quite a lot. It's just lovely to read back when I'm in a better place to be like, whoa, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I'm glad I don't feel that way right now. I'm really positive. This is great. Like, it's awesome.
That's why I honestly, reflecting back on journals is such a powerful thing that I don't think we do enough.
No, I agree. It's eye-opening. And it's really cool because when you read back, you're like, oh, I've been in this situation before. What did I do last time? Like,
and for me, when I'm going through a rut and I go back and look back at my journal and I do these weekly summaries, like all the great things from the week, it reminds me that, life was actually quite good not that long ago.
Yes.
And I can get back there.
Yeah.
Because when you're in a pit, when you're, like in the dumps and you're looking at life through a negative lens, it feels like you're never going to be good again.
Yeah.
Or it feels like good was just so unattainable or so far away.
Time slows down.
Yeah, that it's like, how can I? And then you start thinking that because I've had 3 shit days,
this is
that
life.
that last year has been shit.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I tell myself, I'm like,
yeah,
life has just been really shit recently.
yeah.
And I go back 3 days, I'm like, I just said like I just had the best week ever. I'm like, okay, Ed, like this is why it's important. I got to read back, and it's a reminder to myself to always put those, like, I've got to do my journal entries, and I need to do that thing at the end of every week. And you know, even with this post-it note thing, it takes a lot of delayed gratification to be able to do that, which is what I was just speaking to someone about, because they were like, you don't open it till a year later. And I was like, yeah, actually, you know what? It takes, most people wouldn't do that. Know that you're going to put something in, you're never going to read it until a whole year passes. And then you can open it up and then like have this amazing moment where you're like, oh my God, all these good times.
To me, that I'm like, I wouldn't be tempted to read it. I would forget to do it. Like the idea of doing that consistently for the year is what impresses me more than anything.
So you know what the funny thing was? It was because both myself and Tammi were away for New Year's.
Wait, it's once a week.
Once a week.
No, once a day.
Once a week. Once a week.
Oh, that's so much more attainable than the day that I was thinking. Anyway, sorry,
So we normally open it on New Year's Day,
or
like in the first week of the year.
Yeah.
Because we were away, we didn't do it. And I brought it out onto the dining room table so we wouldn't forget. And I just kept on forgetting. Yeah. And then it got to a point where the whole of January had passed, and I've been like, I can't be bothered to do this anymore. I'm just not going to do it. And then it got to like, and I was like, and every weekend we're like, we've got to open the post-it notes. And then the weekend would go by, we're like, fuck, I didn't open the post-it notes.
But what you're saying right now, Ed, is exactly what we do with our health and our struggles and the things is you're like, oh, okay, this is a bit hard. I'm going to deal with it tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes around and then we don't deal with it.
Monday.
So it's like, one of the best things that I could suggest doing is taking one little step forward, whatever that is. If it's writing down an emotion, if it's speaking to someone, if it's scheduling a call to speak to someone, that's like a 2-minute action that you can take to start to feel better, right? I interrupted you completely just then, so I'm going to let you go.
It's true.
So sorry.
So we did open it this past weekend. Yeah. And as soon as I opened it, I was like, oh, this is such a good, this is such a good thing to do. I can't believe I put this off. And it inspired both of us 100% straight away to be like, okay, we'll step up this year. Yeah.
I really like what you just said. Sometimes I feel like I'm just using analogies a lot today. Yeah. It's just what's coming to mind. I love what you just said about you had assumed that it was going to be more effort than what it was worth, but actually it ended up being more than what you expected. And I think that a lot of the times the story we tell ourselves in our heads of what we have to do is actually so much harder than actually what it will be to just do it.
Yeah.
You know, like putting off an accessory exercise that you should be doing before you get into a session, but you just add it to your warm up and it's like, oh, that was really easy. And my shoulders are starting to feel a bit better. Or like sometimes I think with journaling even, I've found myself like this because I am so expressive when I write. Like I'm not just like a 3-word journaler. Like it can be short and it can be long, but sometimes when I don't really feel like doing it or I think it's going to be really hard, I like want to put it off. But if I sit down and do it, I'm like, oh, you could just write a couple things and write what you want to write about tomorrow even, you know, so you don't forget about it. So it's almost like you said, just leaning into the discomfort of doing the thing that you think is going to be challenging, because generally speaking, your expectations don't meet that reality. And because of that, in a way that it's the reverse, where your expectation is worse than the reality, it feels good.
Yeah. I mean, we struggle so much more in imagination than we do in real life.
Yeah. It's so true. Where I was going with the last thing that I was saying, sorry, about the journaling and what I'd recognized and what I was trying to highlight for myself was what you had said earlier about doing less feels better for you. And that's what I've been telling myself. I've literally written it every day for probably like the last 3 weeks. Less is more. Like I've just said it each time. I'm like, you are trying to find your minimum effective dose in everything that you're doing. Stop adding shit to your plate.
I thought I already knew what my minimum effective dose was, because I already would say I do less than everyone else here in our team. But I'm still thinking my minimum effective dose is even lower than I think.
I think so too, which is now why I'm loving the fact that I'm like, well, I'm literally coming from ground zero. Like I mean, it's for my food stuff as well. I'm like, well, I've technically done like an elimination diet and I can just continue it and start to reintroduce things and start to figure out my gut stuff a little bit better. I technically am coming from like ground zero with training where anything right now is awesome. So why not just start with as little as possible and see how my body responds, and understand that your minimum effective dose is going to be different at different stages. It's not going to be the same.
Nope.
Mine used to be like I could do double sessions a day and that was still like
easy,
fucking great. Yeah. Like I could have done more, but I didn't,
If I went on holiday, I could train twice a day.
Yeah.
Genuinely. If I had nothing to do all day and you could just coast and take it super easy and just be surrounded by good people and sunshine and not have an alarm, and I could genuinely train twice a day. I think I'd thrive.
Yeah, it'd just be like you said, the other stresses in your life and the other things going on.
But there's other things I choose to do because I love them. So this is not me saying that I wish that's what I was doing. Like, but I know that my body could do it if I just lighten my plate a little bit.
Yeah, which is like the whole argument for athlete versus non-athlete and why it's appropriate for certain trainings.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're not talking about that. We're talking about struggle. What do you want to do? Some closing thoughts?
Yeah. Closing thoughts. Don't have any closing thoughts. You got some closing thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I just want to normalize struggle and to say that it's okay to be going through things and to not put a timeline on it. I think that's something for myself, because I am a little bit of a perfectionist, as we've learned with certain things, is like I don't have control over this entirely, and I can't beat myself up for not being where I want to progress wise coming back from something like my mental health or the other struggles that I'm going through. Like, it's okay to repeat those struggles as well and to not be frustrated by them. But hopefully through those processes, it's not just happening to you, you're learning from it and you're looking for things to connect the dots and developing self-awareness, because self-awareness is a strength. It's nowhere near a weakness, and vulnerability is something that should be lent into, because I think a lot of people speak about, building trust, but I think that trust comes from vulnerability and sharing that space with people and letting people in and letting them know that you're not okay is fine, but you can do it in a tactful way that makes sense to you. Yeah. All I want to say is, like, we're all going through shit, and if you need people to lean on, you can definitely find them. And it doesn't have to be in your immediate circle. It can be people online if that is the way you communicate. Yeah, that's it.
Nice, Tam. Nothing else to add. That was beautifully said. Thank you as always.
Yeah,
always love
welcome.
our chats.
Same.
And I'll see you here next time.
Bye.